Today, the Las Vegas Sun published a handwritten letter purportedly written by John Ensign to the campaign staffer he has admitted to having an affair with. Her name is Cindy Hampton. The letter's dated February 2008. That would have been during the time of the affair, according to the senator's own timeline. And the letter reads, "Cindy, this is the most important letter that I've ever written. What I did with you was wrong. I was completely self-centered and only thinking of myself. I used you for my own pleasure, not letting thoughts of you, Doug, your husband, or your kids come into my mind. I betrayed everything I believe in. I lied to myself over and over. I justified my actions because I blamed my wife. Doug has been a great friend to me over the years, and I threw all of that away over wanting to feel good. I take 100% responsibility for my actions. Plain and simple, it was wrong. It was sin." We called John Ensign's office today to confirm that this letter was, in fact, written by him. They have not returned our calls so far. The letter was given to the Las Vegas Sun by the husband of Ensign's admitted mistress, Doug Hampton, who's referenced in the letter. Hampton today also filled in a few of the other outrageously scandalous blanks in this story. He admitted that he was attempting to extort millions of dollars out of Senator Ensign. Mr. Hampton also said that within 24 hours of writing this plaintiff letter, Senator Ensign was already back to pursuing his wife. Ensign that weekend reportedly telling Doug Hampton, quote, "I'm in love with your wife." And we know from Ensign's own admission that the affair didn't end until 6 months after this "it all has to be over now, it was sin" letter was dated. Mr. Hampton also says that his wife was paid over $25,000 severance by John Ensign when she left his office during the affair in April of last year. That may pose some serious ethics problems for Senator Ensign. We already knew that her pay had been doubled during the time of the affair, but it was not previously known how much her severance package was worth. Also, Cindy Hampton herself is now publicly calling for her ex-boyfriend John Ensign to resign. Meanwhile, from Ensign's Republican colleagues in the Senate, we have still heard nothing. Senator Vitter, still no comment? Really? Also, no comment from the Republican Party establishment. Now, that's an important part of this because we learned at the start of the scandal that Republican Party funds were used to put Ensign's mistress's 19-year-old son on the payroll of the National Republican Senatorial Committee while Ensign chaired that committee. It means essentially Republican Party donors were paying Ensign's mistress's son at his behest. We called the NRSC today, and they referred all questions on the matter to Senator Ensign's office. Like I said, he's not calling us back. But the NRSC did tell us that they haven't received any complaints from Republican Party donors thus far. What, it's supposed to be weird now to have the teenage sons of your senator's mistress on the payroll? Then there's also Republican Senator Tom Coburn, who has been dragged into this yet again. We placed a call to his office again today for comment because his name surfaced again today. Doug Hampton alleged, as he made this letter public today, that Ensign wrote the letter at the urging of and in the presence of Senator Coburn. Senator Coburn was one of Ensign's roommates. Doug Hampton further alleges that Coburn confronted Senator Ensign about the affair and told him he should pay the Hamptons millions of dollars. Senator Coburn's office has previously resisted our efforts for comments on this matter, but today they did give us this statement, quote, "Dr. Coburn did everything he could to encourage Senator Ensign to end this affair and to persuade Senator Ensign to repair the damage he had caused to his own marriage and the Hamptons' marriage. Had Senator Ensign followed Dr. Coburn's advice, this episode would have ended and been made public long ago." The connection between Coburn and Ensign here happens to be the same connection that connects this Republican sex scandal with the other Republican sex scandal still ongoing, the one of Governor Mark Sanford. The connection is a house in Washington called C Street. Coburn and Ensign both lived together at the C Street Christian Fellowship House that was made famous when Mark Sanford mentioned it in his long, rambling, "I was sleeping with the Argentinian lady" speech. He says that he received support from C Street during the time he was continuing that secret affair with the woman in Argentina. That would have been at roughly the same time John Ensign was getting advice from his C Street friends about how best to pay off the woman he was having his secret affair with. Kind of sounds like a fun house. Meanwhile, in South Carolina today, presumably in an effort to show how the new post-scandal Mark Sanford is going to be different from the old pre-scandal Mark Sanford, Sanford's office, for the first time in the whole 6.5 years he's been governor, released a public schedule of events for him. We've been waiting 6.5 years to find out where he's going to be this week. And here it is. No public events are currently scheduled for the remainder of the week. Ta-da! The common Beltway conventional wisdom about these scandals is that Mark Sanford was going to be saved because of good political timing, being overshadowed by Governor Sarah Palin's awkward resignation and the overwhelming story of Michael Jackson's death. Then again, conventional wisdom also said the John Ensign scandal was gone too, and that came back with a handwritten vengeance today. Beltway wisdom also holds that Sarah Palin would be a Republican rock star and a fundraising magnet despite the damage she's done to her own elected office prospects recently. That, it turns out, may also be wrong. There's news today that the Republican candidates in the only major statewide elections this year, the governor's races in New Jersey and Virginia, are both cool to the idea of Palin joining them on the campaign trail. Republican Bob McDonnell of Virginia told the Associated Press he still doesn't fully understand the announcement Palin just made about her own career. And a spokesman for New Jersey Republican gubernatorial candidate Chris Christie told the AP flat out, quote, "We don't have any plans on having her in." Joining us now is New York Times columnist Frank Rich. Mr. Rich, thank you very much for coming in. It's always nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
I had Mark McKinnon on the show last night.
Right.
And I had planned to ask him if he was working for a Republican gubernatorial candidate right now, would he want Palin to come raise money? And at the last minute, I didn't ask him the question because I felt like it was so obvious that the answer was yes. Of course, anybody would want Palin to come campaign for them if they were running as a Republican. Now it seems like that common wisdom might be wrong. Do you think it's correct?
Well, it's half and half. Look, in the majority of the country, which means blue America and purple America, she's persona non grata. That's why they don't want her into New Jersey and Virginia, because she'll only hurt their cause in close races in states that are Obama states. The problem is, she is the biggest star in the Republican Party. This is all they have left. We're seeing what's happening to all the other potential stars. You know, Ensign and Sanford both thought they were possibly presidential candidates for the next go-round. So Palin is probably the biggest fundraiser for the party. So the question is how they maneuver this to get her into places where they'll love her, you know, South Carolina, Utah, Idaho, and not further damage the national Republican brand, although you have to wonder, it's so damaged, maybe it doesn't even make any difference at this point.
Well, I mean, one of the ironies of all the Republican self-destruction this summer is that it has been all of these people from the very sort of same part of the party, these family values conservatives, Ensign and Sanford and Palin. And I don't feel like 90s politics are going to come back. I don't feel like they can be a family values party anymore, if only just because of all this embarrassing hypocrisy. But I don't believe that right-wing Republicanism is going to go away. So if they lose the family values platform, what do they run on instead? What is the new right of the Republican Party?
I think the new right of the Republican Party, and you see it most of all in Sarah Palin, is this sense of grievance against the elites, for starting with Obama, but then, you know, the mainstream, so-called mainstream or liberal media, and also the elite of the Republican Party. They don't really like people like Mark McKinnon, for instance. And so there is this kind of populist, angry thing going on. A lot of it focused on Obama, but there's a following for it, and it's separate from the, you know, same-sex marriage, abortion, those issues. It's related to it, but it's different, and that's the note Palin's been hitting.
What sort of policies would a movement like that support?
Nothing good. I mean, it's the only policy is, you know, I see Russia from my state. I mean, the whole point, it has no real content. It's this unfocused anger. You know, you see it on someone like Glenn Beck. Some of it's aimed at Wall Street, which is traditionally a big part of the Republican Party, but it's just a kind, almost nihilistic, and I think therefore somewhat scary if it burns out of control and a problem party has to deal with.
The part of it that I see a little scary, and I realize that other people aren't focusing on this as the main point of Sarah Palin's sort of weird implosion over the past week, but her railing against the ethics complaints. First of all, there aren't that many ethics complaints. Right. There's like 3 of them that are outstanding. The most serious ones were all filed before she got tapped for the VP. But to make that the issue, to focus in on that as the talking point to explain why she had to get out of public office, ethics complaints, this accountability stuff, to crusade against accountability, citizens' means of keeping their elected officials in control, seems to me to be a sort of dangerous form of grievance politics for people who actually want to get elected.
Right, particularly this is a party that's still coming off the Abramoff scandal. One of their other few marquee stars, Newt Gingrich, had his own set of scandals that are not that far in the past.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of a desperation to try to find something, and it'll be something else. But underlying it is, you look down on us. You look down on us, working people who go out fishing and have, grandchildren out of wedlock, and you're a bunch of snobs, and it's a minority market for this, but it's a loud one, and it'll shell out money for her and for Republican candidates she supports in those places where she is wanted.
Briefly, do Democrats just stand by and watch this happen? Is this a fire they just watch burn in the Republican Party, or should they be throwing people cans of gas and helping this along in some way?
I think the Democrats should ignore it, let them commit harakiri, and then deliver on the promises that Obama's made to the country.
Oh, you radical.
A radical idea.
Frank Rich, New York Times columnist. Always great to have you here.
Great to
Thanks
see
for
you.
coming in.